So our next speaker is, of course, Dr. Doris Rapp. She's a board-certified environmental medical specialist, pediatric allergist. She is the author of her brand new book, Our Toxic World, A Wake-Up Call. Also, Is This Your Child's World? She has been a featured guest on Larry King Live, Oprah, Montel Williams, Maury Povich, and many more. She is our resident expert on environmental toxins and how they affect our kids. And also, if y'all have energy at the end of the day, she'll be doing a book signing at the registration table. So we'd love for you to join us for that. So if you can please give her a round of applause and welcome Dr. Rapp. Thank
you. Is this on?
You're good.
It is? Okay. Well, I'm sort of surprised and surprised, and I'm pleased to be here. When she called me initially to come, I said, what do I have that I can contribute that's significant to this group? And after listening this morning, I say, oh my goodness, I really think I can help every single one of you. I'd like to show you some meaningful and practical ways to cope with some of the challenges that you're faced with. And I really think that some of the ideas that I'm going to tell you will be applicable in every one of your lives or practices. We have these terrible epidemics of illness now. We never had them before. I'm so old that I can remember when we didn't have these problems that we're having now. I can remember that Alzheimer's was a 90-year-old, not a 40-year-old who couldn't find their way back to the bathroom. Things have changed considerably. Why is there so much autism, cancer, ADHD, asthma, diabetes, thyroid disease, learning disabilities, obesity? Even your pets are ill with cancer, diabetes, and thyroid disease. Everyone needs to know why this is happening, how it can be prevented, and then what we can do about it. Why is there so much damage to the brain and the nervous system? This autism spectrum, it goes from ADD, ADHD, bipolar, Asperger's, all of these things. Every one of those is epidemic right now. ADHD is 1 in 8 now have this. In 1979, it was 1.6 million. Now it's 4 to 6 million, depending on what you look at. Learning disabilities are epidemic. 1 in 18 now have this problem, supposedly. Today, 3 million have learning disabilities. 2 million have developmental delays. I really believe that improved environmental medical care can improve or eliminate some of these illnesses, often without drugs. So the answer is to find and eliminate the cause. If you've got a nail in your shoe causing a sore in your foot, what's the best thing to do? Get a bigger Band-Aid or take out the nail. You have got to learn how to find the nails. That's what I want to show you today. Autism, why is it affecting, the latest figure I get is 1 in 115 children. 1 in 60 young boys and 1 in 80 girls who live in polluted New Jersey are now destined to have autism. Why? Is it the pollution? What is it in that area that's made it so bad? Mercury and other substances in vaccines are not the only factors. Understanding the genetics and the metabolic defects gives insight and help, but it's not the full answer. We have got to look more at environmental issues. You know, they make jokes about the fact if you're blind and you touch an elephant, you talk about what you know. Well, I know environmental medicine, and so I think that this is a big part of the elephant. But other people that have more expertise in other areas would think other things were related. But we've got to recognize what's causing the problems. So let me explain what's going on in relatively simple terms. We have polluted our air, our food, our water, our homes, our schools, and our workplaces with chemicals that do the following. It damages the immune system. What does that mean? It means there's going to be more infection, there's going to be more allergies and asthma, and the end stage is there's going to be more cancer. It damages the endocrine system. What's that mean? You're going to have more diabetes, and thyroid disease, and adrenal disease. We have all of that. It damages the brain and the nervous system. So there's more brain damage, causing those problems that we've just talked about. It damages the reproductive system. So the sex organs are not developed properly, or they're deformed, or they have two sets. We have enough trouble with one set. It causes changes in the sexual attitudes. And many things are going on that are strange. Many chemicals feminize the males, and some of the chemicals also feminize the females, such as dioxin. But PCBs make the females more masculine, so that we're having hormonal changes, and it's not just in us. If you read my book, Our Toxic World, A Wake-Up Call, there's one animal after another having the same problems, and they're getting extinct. Is that what's going to happen to us? Well, let me tell you, that's something to consider, but I'm going to tell you how to keep yourself from going extinct. That it damages the circulatory system, so we have more heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, irregular heartbeats. Now, the EPA admits that chemicals hurt us. 25% of genetic or birth defects are due to chemicals. They admit that. Well, how many pregnant women know that? How many women are given advice on how to avoid chemicals? 40% of fungicides, pesticides, insecticides cause cancer. With everybody having cancer and they're all stirred up about how we're going to treat it, what's causing it? How many more women and men have to get it? 1/2 of the people in this room are going to get cancer. How many more does it have to be before we say, enough already, let's get at what's causing it? 30% of reproductive problems are due to chemicals. Infertility, you used to go to bed at night and the next morning you were pregnant. It doesn't happen that way anymore. It just doesn't. You need all kinds of special help from all kinds of outsiders. Well, let me tell you, this isn't the way it's supposed to be, and the animals are having the same problem. The EPA takes 10 years before they finally ban something, and then they make exceptions, exclusions, extensions, so the toxic chemicals continue to pollute and harm for years. Why? Because the chemical factories have stockpiled it, and we don't want them to lose any money. Are we kidding? The EPA scientists object because political pressure is put on them, and they aren't allowed to give out the data the way they've accumulated it. They're under pressure from the other parts of our government. And the chemical companies' executives, the people that know all about pesticides, are given key positions in the EPA and the FDA. We absolutely have to have pesticide research, but they're using handicapped children and orphans and brain-damaged children. There's a talk that I gave last week in Dallas called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And I'll talk to you later on about how you can get a copy of those slides. And you will not believe the ugly. It is as close to Nazi Germany as you can imagine. We are doing things that are very shameful in this country. Of 28 nations, 27 have a lower infant mortality than the United States. 7 in 1,000 babies now die, in spite of neonatologists, in spite of special units. In other words, we're smart as can be. Why are we losing our youngsters, our infants? 50% of the pregnancies in this country end up in stillborns, miscarriages, and birth defective infants. Why? Well, I'll get to that a little later. Pesticide, if a mother's exposed to a pesticide, the first 90 days of her pregnancy, she has a 70% chance of having a stillborn. Are the pathologists checking for chemicals to see if that's why that baby died? If a man sprays weeds next door, his sperm are damaged for 90 days prior to the time that he tries to conceive and gets a gleam in his eye. The Vietnam veterans have abnormal sperm today, and they have more defective babies if they've been exposed to dioxin. If they were in Vietnam and they weren't exposed, they have normal children. Dr. Jones mentioned earlier today that these children, the children of the Vietnam vets who were exposed, have atypical infections. How harmful are these? How prevalent are they? Well, toxic chemicals are found in the blood, the urine, the fat, the stool, the breast milk, and the semen of 90 to 100% of all American children and adults, and it's true in other countries too. Adults have an average of 91, but some of them have as many as 500 chemicals in their body. These pesticides repeatedly have been shown to lower the IQ. The rats can't do the rat maze anymore. The tadpoles can't remember how to swim. We're doing the same thing to our children. You can't eat polluted fish anymore. Now, what is one more answer to help the autistic spectrum? As far as I'm concerned, we simply must do more to prevent chemical overload. You've got to stop those chemicals from coming in. You've got to get rid of the chemicals that are already there. And you've got to use nutrients to build up that immune system so that you and your family can withstand the onslaught of what is going on. You've got to be able to withstand the infections like Borrelia. You've got to withstand all the radiation and all the other things that are going on. The bottom line has to be that you have to pray you have good genes, and you have to pray that you haven't been exposed to too much. But if you have a good immune system, you can fight it off. Everybody doesn't have ragweed allergy during the ragweed season. It's those with an immune system that is damaged that have trouble. And if you've had chemotherapy from cancer treatment, your immune system is depressed. You are more apt to get sick. And this morning they made the point that if you get sick with the diseases that we've been talking about, you're more prone to develop food and chemical sensitivities. If you develop chemical sensitivities, you're going to develop food sensitivities. If you develop food sensitivities, you're going to develop chemical sensitivities. It all boils down to what the chemicals do in damaging the immune system, the reproductive system, the endocrine system, the things we talked about. We need far more studies. Babies in the uterus are marinated in chemicals. The uterine fluid, which should be nice and pristine, pure, has over 200 toxic chemicals. So when the baby is born, you check their blood, it's full of these things that I told you that are so bad. So what do we have to do about it? We teach couples how to eliminate the chemicals from their bodies before they think of conceiving. The babies are given a vaccine when they're barely out of the vagina. Well, come on, that's when the nervous system and the brain is exceedingly vulnerable. Refuse the vaccine. The babies are wrapped in disposable diapers that contain plastic. The plastics feminize boys. Hey, what do we do about it? Go back to cotton. The babies are fed mother's breast milk, and the breast milk contains 10 times more chemicals than you'll find in the mother's blood because the human is trying to excrete the chemicals from the mother. But it's in the breast milk. If you feed the babies the bottled milk, they're going to get genetically engineered milk and soy formulas. What's the answer? Teach the mothers to get rid of the chemicals before they get pregnant. Prior to and during the pregnancy, they've got to be very careful. Nothing is as good for a baby as breast milk. Nothing's in second place. The cow will never do it. And then what do we do that just boggles my mind? We put the formula in a plastic bottle and we stick it in the microwave. That gets the plasticizers into the formula, which affect the boys and the girls sexually. And in addition, the microwaves are very bad. Now let me talk about the plastics of the phthalates first. Plastics are in dyes, perfume, toys, blood bags, blood bags, cling wrap, nail polish, PVCs, lubricants. They found it in all 2,500 urines that were in this particular study. But Europe bans phthalates or plastic in baby toys and cosmetics. 90% of unborn exposed baby boys will have smaller or deformed genitals and are thought to be more effeminate if they are exposed to phthalates or if the mother's exposed early in the pregnancy. And the same thing happens to rats and mice. What does this long-term low-dose pesticide and sex hormone exposure do? We really don't know. It's in the air, it's in the meats, it's in everything. Now let's talk a minute about microwaves. Microwaves release toxic chemicals from plastic containers, plastic wrap. It causes a styrene from the styrofoam to get into what you drink. What's the answer? Stop drinking stuff that's in plastic and styrofoam. Your microwave oven leaks at least 6 feet through walls. You lose your B12, you lose a B and the D and the E vitamins. Your vital energy in the food goes down 90%. It damages the heart. It causes digestion, urinary, brain, and nervous system problems in animals and man. Many studies indicate that there are increased cancer cells in the blood and the organs from microwaves. These are studies in animals. The foods are broken down and they're altered by radiation. At one time in Russia, you couldn't buy a microwave unless you took the goggles that went with it because they caused cataracts. Do you want cataracts when you get to be my age? Come on. We've got to start to wake up. And apparently they, at one time, outlawed microwaves in Russia, and then they decided they were all right. And there was a man by the name of Rapp who did a detailed evaluation of the Russian and the German research, and he showed unquestionably that the microwaves are dangerous. And he was prosecuted and persecuted because of it. So what can we do right now that's helpful and inexpensive? You can begin to make some sensible choices. You can observe when there is a sudden change in the appearance or actions of an autistic child or yourself or anybody else. What did they eat? What did they touch? What did they smell? Start to think about it. You can figure it out better than anyone else. This is probably the most important slide I'm going to show you. You can figure out why you're sick if you pay attention to how you look. When do you suddenly act and behave and feel different? Your pulse will frequently go down up 20 points, and your breathing will be decreased by 15% if you blow into a peak flow meter, which is just a plastic tube with a gauge. You go, whew, and if it drops 15%, it means your lungs were affected. If your writing and drawing is affected. So when do you check people? You check 1 to 5, the appearance, the actions, the pulse, the breathing, and the writing, when someone's outside, and compare it with inside, before you go to bed and in the morning, after you eat a meal, when you've been in every room in your house, when you've been exposed to chemicals. And if you see changes in numbers 1 to 5, it means that something in that area, the food or something in that room, is causing you or your child to feel, act, behave in a different way. Now here are 29 tips to keep the chemicals out of you. In a nutshell, if you want to stay healthy, you've got to watch your water, your air, your food, your pest control, your cleaning products, your home furnishing, your carpets, your mattresses, and your personal body products. You're overwhelmed and say, my God, that's everything. No, it isn't everything. You tackle it one thing at a time. You can do this, and actually, you really almost must do it. What do you do about water? Water, incidentally, they now clean up the sewage, take out the bowel movements, and they recirculate it. It comes out of your faucet. Nothing's taking out the many drugs that everybody's taking that are in the water. Nothing takes out the chemicals in the water. All these things you're eating, so certainly try to get a reverse osmosis system with a charcoal under the sink filter. The shower head in the bathroom also should be one that takes chemicals out. You don't want to take a lingering bath because the chemicals that are in the water are going to get in you. Your biggest organ is your skin, unless you're in a detox bath with Epsom salts and things like that. There's a wonderful book by Jacqueline Crone, I misspelled her name, called Natural Methods of Detoxification. She tells you fast, easy, inexpensive ways to cope with all kinds of things. 50% of the water comes from the groundwater. There are 74 different pesticides found in the groundwater, admittedly by the EPA. Pesticide applicators and golf course superintendents have 2 to 3 times more lung, brain, and prostate cancer. The golfers are at greater risk. Do you golf? Does your child golf? Do you have a house near a golf course? That could be a problem. 15 to 23 million people drink pesticides in their water, and 10 million drink levels above the cancer risk level that's thought to be okay. Durispan is in 25% of the groundwater. Some states it's as high as 65%. And this chemical causes brain, liver, kidney, and birth defects. Atrazine is all over the Middle West in all the wells and everything. Durispan, they've been using it in homes for ages to control termites. It's used on foods. It's used in golf courses. It was banned, and our wonderful government said you can use it for 2 more years because it's been stockpiled, and you can use it on golf courses indefinitely. I think the government doesn't like golfers. You know, come on. Now, you need an air purifier. And in addition, you have to have a quality vacuum cleaner. Put it on in the dark and see if it leaks. You need to clean those furnace filters more often. You need to fix any gas leaks in your house. Hydrocarbons cause lots of problems. If you think you've got an intermittent gas leak, get it fixed. Electric and solar heat are best, but that's not always practical. Now let's talk about the indoor air. There are 150 chemicals are found in the average home that cause cancer, birth defects, and behavior problems. What makes you think some of these chemicals aren't affecting your children? The air also contains molds, and molds, if you live in a moldy house, trust me, that may be a major cause of your problems. The mold spores and the mycotoxins are absolutely terrible, and if you look at my videotape, Environmentally Sick Schools, you'll see how molds can drastically affect how adults and children behave and act and learn and walk and talk. It's all there. It isn't a question, does it or doesn't it? It does. Now, most air purifiers claim they take out about 99% of dust, mold, and pollen. I prefer the Austin machine. I'm giving you the name. Why? Because they use a special carbon cloth that removes supposedly as much as 15 pounds of a coconut charcoal filter. The filter lasts 2 years, not 3 to 6 months. And this is the best part as far as I'm concerned. You can buy it, try it for 1 month, and if you don't like it, you send it back and they'll give you your full refund. The only thing you have to pay is to send it back. Now that's the bargain of the century as far as I'm concerned. That is really good because you'll see whether it helps. It's on rollers. You can try it in one room and then the other, roll it around. You can use it in 3 different rooms in a period of 24 hours. Now, let's talk about schools for a minute. 87% of the California school districts, or 1.5 million children, are exposed to chemicals. Of the chemicals in the school, 70% cause cancer, 54% damage the brain and the nervous system, and 50% injure the reproductive system, and 52%, let me see, I missed something. Basically, 50 to 55% damage the brain, the nervous system, cause birth defects and reproductive problems. Why would any sensible person send their child to a school that is using a disinfectant, deodorant, cleaning agent, has panelings or carpets that are toxic to the children? Why would they do that? In this videotape, there's a school carpet that I sent to Anderson Lab, and I gave you Anderson Lab's phone number on the back of my card. The back is more important than the front. And they will check. And all we did was blow air over a school carpet where 30% of the teachers and students got sick. And what do you think happened to the mice? One of the mice became paralyzed in 3 hours and dead in 4. What do you think these neurotoxic chemicals do to your children? In other words, you're trying so hard to make everything clean. Well, we got to worry about cleaning up the work areas, and we got to worry about cleaning up the schools and the colleges and everything else. The only reason parents allow it is they don't know. Chemical avoidance improves your IQ, your energy, your creativity, your productivity, and there's lots of studies to prove that. There's many as over 200 references in the back of every chapter in this book that talks about the toxic chemicals and what they're doing to us. If you use a lot of Roundup herbicide, it's linked to ADD, ADHD. Are they using that around your house? 2,4-D causes lymphoma so often it's been outlawed in Sweden, it's outlawed in Quebec, and they were going to outlaw it in the United States, but they didn't do it. Now in Israel, they have some smart Jewish ladies. They got together and said, what's causing cancer? Okay. They figured out it was the chemicals in the barn. They argued with the politicians and said, you have to go ahead and take these chemicals off, out of the market. So they did it. 10 years later, what happened? In 27 other countries, there was a 20% increase in breast cancer. But in Israel, where they had taken away the chemicals, there was an 8% drop. And in young women, it dropped 34%. Now, why doesn't anyone hear about this study? It means that if we cut down on the chemicals, we'd cut down on cancer. How many more of us have to get these terrible illnesses before we decide to say, enough already? Now, don't eat pesticided foods. You can't do it, or meats. What do I say? Eat organic foods. You can't afford them? I'll tell you what to do. You grow your own. You join a co-op. You get friendly with a farmer and tell them you'll come and help pick the crops. You get together with a group at your church or your neighborhood or your place of work and say, let's have a community garden. We'll all pitch in. We'll take the produce. We'll split the produce and we'll split the work. This is not an impossible thing to do, but we have got to start to eat organic food all the time. And you can't eat genetically engineered food or irradiated food. Some of the newer studies indicate that some of the pesticided, genetically altered things, when they get in your stomach, actually cause the animals to produce pesticides. You can make a pesticide factory in your abdomen. You think we've got problems now? Come on. Why are they continuing this thing that's going on? Now, are the rats telling us something? If animal research doesn't mean anything in relation to humans, then why are we doing any animal research? If a pregnant mother rat is exposed to anvil, which is a pyrethrum, with piperonal butoxide to control a West Nile infected mosquitoes, the newborn mice have holes in their brains. What happens to the babies of mothers who happen to be sprayed with these toxic chemicals when a city decides that the mosquito needs to be eliminated? Has anyone done any studies? Not to my knowledge. Chemical exposures in 1 part per trillion can cause unborn male rodents to have less testosterone, less sperm, and to respond like females. It's not just the rats. And if you use a spray, anvil and piperonal butoxide on a breast tissue growing culture of cancer cells, what do you think happens to the cells? They go wild. How many women have a flare of breast cancer after they spray their neighborhood because they found 30 uninfected mosquitoes or 1 infected mosquito within a mile? Is this right that we can be poisoned without having anything to say about it? I've seen thousands of children. I've put them on a 1-week diet that's in my books, usually chapter 3. When the foods are re-added, in 3 to 4 days, they might be worse the first 3 or 4 days, then they're definitely better usually by the 7th day. And then the 2nd week, you add the foods back 1 at a time. And you'll see this food causes bedwetting, and this causes a behavior problem, and this causes them to be unable to think. It gives you answers right away. Put the whole family on it. You talk with autism about dairy and gluten-free diets. I never saw a kid that was just allergic to 1 food or 2 classes of foods. You don't come that way. If your immune system is out of sorts, you're sensitive to all kinds of foods. You're sensitive to dust and mold and pollen and foods and chemicals. If you don't believe it, look at my videotape. It shows adults and children, and we don't tell them what we're doing. We put a drop of dust or mold or pollen or foods or chemicals in their arm, and we produce their symptoms. And then we give them a weaker dilution and make them well, and you can send them home with a weaker dilution of that particular substance, and then they can get into that thing without getting sick. If you do the diet, 60% of ADHD will be at least 60% better within 1 week. If you throw in an air purifier to take out the dust and the mold and the pollen, you're going to get an 80% improvement. That's better than all those toxic drugs. I doubt if I'll have time to show all the slides, but the drugs that we're using for ADHD are sinful. They're using drugs that cause heart attacks, strokes, and death in 3- and 5-year-olds. Is this right? These are drugs that haven't been checked. For details, look at my videos. In foods, let's talk about them. There's over 5,000 preservatives and chemicals in our food. Of those, 2,500 are known to cause cancer. 55% of the vegetables, 55% of the fruits, 29% of the vegetables. In organic stores, 25% are not organic. In regular stores, 70% are organic. How can you tell the difference? Well, this is a sin, but I'm going to tell you. Find somebody that knows how to teach you how to test for muscle strength, okay? If you do muscle testing, you can tell whether a food is good or not. By holding it here, your arm will get weak. Find a chiropractor that does it, and they can teach it to you. Infant baby foods, they checked them, 76 contained 16 different pesticides. Try Safeway. They have organic infant and toddler foods. The most pesticided things are chicken, eggs, red meat, especially the fat in the meat, fish, and dairy. 30 million children under 5 years eat 8 pesticides a day. And there are just pesticides in everything. The grains, one apple can have 10 of 37 different pesticides on the apple. The average is 4. If your child eats an apple every day for a week, the child's probably got their load for a lifetime. Now, there's more and more evidence that autism is associated with cell damage by toxic exposure. The Purkinje cells in the cerebellum are very sensitive. You've got to start to make in your body more glutathione, or you've got to take glutathione every day, because this grabs onto those chemicals and helps you to get rid of it. The major foods involved in autism, they call milk, wheat, gluten, sugar, eggs, and chocolate. Let me tell you, it could be a bay leaf in your stew. You just have to check on everything. Sally Rockwell is a PhD dietitian. I'm telling you about her, and I've given you her address. Why? Because if your doctor gives you a prescription, she can help you figure out a diet that is safe for your child, and it might be covered by your insurance. It's amazing that insurance companies will pay for medical care that doesn't help, but won't pay for medical care that does help. And I have a book that has a chapter on that entitled, Is This Your Child's World? Now let's talk about aspartame. It's in diet soda and thousands of foods. Rumsfeld, the FDA, and Searle helped this get through before the deadline when it would have been stopped. It damages the coating of your nerves. Therefore, it contributes to macular degeneration. It contributes all kinds of problems in your brain and your nervous system. In mice, it causes brain tumors and holes. In monkeys, it causes seizures and eye damage. In humans, it's linked to depression, headaches, obesity, dizziness, possibly Parkinson's and MS. When aspartame breaks down, it forms formic acid and formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is toxic. It causes cancer. It's linked to the rise of brain cancer in children and adults. Saccharin we get from petroleum and toluene. It causes bladder cancer in rats. So what's the answer? I say, go buy yourself some stevia. It's a liquid. You put a little of this natural powder or liquid in any drink or anything, and it'll sweeten it up and it'll be fine. Teflon. The baby in the uterus float in DDT, PCBs, lindane, Teflon, flame retardants. I think as I'm almost done.
10 minutes.
Thank you. Now, what happens if you heat your skillet too hot? You'll get a flu-like illness with chills and headaches and muscle aches, developmental delays, reproductive risks. Birds die within just a few hours. It kills newborn rats. It causes smaller and damaged brains, organs, and cancer in rats. Should you keep using it? It never disappears from the air. Get some different cookware. The children all have it in their blood. It's in the breast milk, it's in the uterine fluid. What's the answer? If you live near a Teflon factory, it's in your water, move. If you're working in a Teflon factory, get yourself another job. It damages the ozone layer. Listen to Gore, he was right. And aluminum pots are bad. Stainless steel can contain nickel, and you certainly have to get the thick stainless steel. Get yourself ceramic coated or glass potware or cookware. And if you haven't got money, go to the richer section of town, go to a garage sale, you get it inexpensively. Gee, I'm only up to 4 and I've got 10 minutes. Well, pest control. You've got to be very careful what you use for pest control. Get a green lawn company and insect pest control. And there's a book that I mentioned on the back of my card. You can download it off the computer. It's called The Bug Stops Here. You look under www, the best control, and it tells you how to get rid of cockroaches and mice and ants without hurting your pets, your children, and yourself. Air pollution. If you use pesticides inside and outside your house, you're going to have a 6-fold increased chance of your children developing lymphoma or leukemia by the age of 7 years. If you use a pesticide collar or a flea spray on your pets, you'll increase their chances of getting cancer along with your children, 6-fold increase. The answer is don't use them. Now, number 5, be careful with your cleaning agents. Baking soda, washing soda, salt, white vinegar work fine. And in your booklet, there's a whole great big description of what to use for what, when, and where from Elizabeth Hughes, and I got her permission to use it. And here I tell you how to brighten your teeth, stop the chlorinated scouring powders, get yourself Bon-Ami, watch out for pine sol and phenol, because these contain phenol. And phenol, you can't clean rats' cages with phenol because they get cancer. There's one study on that. Furniture, make sure you don't buy plywood and synthetic fibers. Try to get everything natural. Avoid chemical marking pens. The chemical goes right up the nose into the brain and damages the brain. Watch out for correction fluid. Watch out for fingernail polish and remover. You don't want to give it up? Let me tell you, your health is more important than the color of your fingernails. Shiny, smelly books. Many people can't read them anymore because of the ink and the chemicals in the paper. Many people can't read a newspaper if the ink isn't dry, and the colored area of the newspaper can make people sick. So watch, how does your child act if your child is reading the paper? How do you feel? Do you get a headache? Do you get sick? I'm telling you not only how to help autistic children, but anybody. These are answers. What do? You dry the magazine, you dry the book, you dry the thing out, or you can get boxes where you put your hand in this covered box and you read through the box. That's another way of doing it. Mattresses. Oh, mattresses. Our government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided we have to have a different flame retardant. So they're going to use boric acid. Now, if you look at the bottle, it's got a crossbones and a skull. And it says, you only use it if you're wearing gloves and a mask. And there's a law that's going in effect at the end of this month that says that they've got to put boric acid in our mattresses as a flame retardant. Now, does somebody have an in with a vested interest with the boric acid company? I don't know, but this is unbelievable. And you must be very careful to have a mattress, if possible, that's organic cotton. They cost $3,000. So let me tell you what to do. What's easy and inexpensive? You buy some organic flannel blankets, and you get them all together, and you pile them up as high as you want them, put a thread through each corner, and put it in a barrier cloth mattress cover that's cotton and pesticide-free. Or you can put all kinds of aluminum foil on top of the mattress, but it's going to crinkle and crunch all night, okay? But don't buy these mattresses that you're seeing advertised that will mold to your body. They are very toxic. I slept on one night, and the next day I walked like that. And I said, woo, and I cut a big piece out of that mattress and sent it to Anderson Lab. And the mice got very sick from it. So, and they're very expensive. Your floor, use vinyl or ceramic tile or marble or wood. For the furniture, you want natural cotton for your carpets. There's a mistake there. Use natural cotton or wool carpets and safe carpet pads and glue. And here are some companies here that sell natural carpets. I bought one from Colin Campbell, and it had no smell when it arrived. Absolutely no smell. Your cookware, we've already talked about, heavy stainless steel. Aluminum cans are bad. Aluminum is bad. Watch your rice cooker. You can't buy a rice cooker that's not aluminum. I tried. Insist on glass. Don't use aluminum foil to wrap things up because we're all loaded with aluminum, and aluminum is one of those trace metals that really bothers you. They're finding now that if you buy soda pop that has sodium benzoate and vitamin C, it forms in the heat when they store it in great big warehouses. When it gets hot, it forms benzene. And what does benzene do? It causes leukemia in children. They're finding that there's a brominated oil that's in soft drinks that also is bad. So you've got to go natural. The bottom line is go natural as much as you can with everything and drink it in glass. No microwave. What do we do about that? Buy yourself an electric toaster oven, $16 to $18. Don't try to buy clothing that's natural silk, cotton, organic if possible, ramie and silk, but don't buy polyester. It's formaldehyde. It causes cancer. Your body products, get a book called Unreasonable Risk by Sam Epstein, a wonderful man, and he tells you that propylene glycol is, propylene glycol is very bad, glycerin is bad, talc is bad. There are a lot of things in personal body products that can make you very, very sick. Dry cleaning, you've got to be very careful. The chemical that they usually use causes cancer. So don't ever put the clean dry cleaning into your closet because you're going to breathe that chemical that causes cancer. Air it out outside and store those clothes in another closet. Mothballs, they'll kill you. Use mint and clove herbs, or you buy yourself a zippered garment plastic bag, and you go ahead and you put your clothes in that. You can get them at chain stores or big linen stores. For sanitary products for women, they bleach them sometimes with dioxin. Now, there's an epidemic of endometriosis. They don't know what's causing it. Let me help them. If you expose monkeys to dioxin, they develop endometriosis. If women work in factories that make dioxin, they develop endometriosis. What makes you think that if you're using sanitary products that are bleached with dioxin on those sensitive membranes, that you aren't going to absorb it and that you might not get it? Come on. Fluoride toothpaste. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Even the government admits that if a 7-year-old takes a pea-sized amount of a fluoridated toothpaste, it's too much. Well, if it isn't good for a 7-year-old, and how many 7-year-olds aren't going to swallow a pea-sized amount? It's not good enough for me or other children or anybody else. Go to the health store. You won't find a non-fluoridated toothpaste anyplace else. You don't want to look gray? I'm all in favor of that. Let me tell you, use natural hair dyes or get yourself a wig. But don't use the dyes, and this goes for men. You go to the health food store. Disposable diapers have a plastic, a phthalate called bisphenol A. It makes the boys more effeminate. Do we want that? No. You know, go to the beach, take a look at the young men. They've got breasts. I'm not kidding. Sometimes their breasts are bigger than the women's. Why? It's the female hormones. Why are young men needing Viagra? Don't think it's just the older guys. We have a real problem. And ladies, we can't do it on our own, you know. So we have to start to solve this problem, and we can't wait much longer. If you don't read any other chapter in this book, read chapter 5. It's all about sex. Now, for disposable diapers, use Tushies or natural cotton diapers. They aren't very popular. Watch out for mercury, metal fillings, root canals. They cause chronic disease. Get yourself a holistic dentist. Sometimes they're going to take out all your teeth. It's going to cost you a fortune. Is it worth it? It's a gamble. It's an expensive gamble. Sometimes someone with arthritis, depression, a million illnesses, well, that's exaggeration. A lot of illness and serious chronic complaints will be perfectly well within a week or a month after they take out the fillings. But other people aren't helped at all. And I gave you the name of a dentist that has a very good reputation that I've heard about in Mexico that doesn't charge an arm and a leg. I'm not sure I should say all of this on a tape. Well, let me go on. Vaccinations you all know about. The more mercury, the more autism. The Amish did a study. They did a study in the Amish, and only one child had autism, and that was one that was adopted. You know. Now, what can you do if they want to vaccinate your child? Let me tell you. You get your doctor to write a little note and say that you can't be vaccinated, okay? And if you get the information from Sherry Tenpenny, and I've given you the names and the numbers, and that's on the back of my card, she will tell you the pros and the cons, and also what the rules are in each state, so that you can still send your child to school even though they're not vaccinated. Check with the health department if you live in a moldy house, near an expressway, over a toxic dump site. Watch out for electrical stuff, watch out for radiation. The more polluted a city is, the sicker the people are. What can you do about it? There's controversy, but you can put a little button on your cell phone. I'm almost done for those who are anxious. You can put a little button on your cell phone. Some people say it doesn't help. I think some of you have heard about the fact that cell phones, there's a big question, are they a problem or are they not? There is no doubt they cause acoustic neuromas. But there are people who say that if you use it on this side, you're going to get cancer around this ear. If you keep it in your pocket, you're going to get cancer of the testicles. There are people arguing about it. Remember, there are a lot of people with vested interests that don't want people to know what's going on. If children are exposed to 2 milligauss of electromagnetic power, they can have more leukemia and more brain tumors. Get yourself a meter, measure all over. If you find that you're being exposed to large amounts, I suggest that you move. It's like living in a microwave. So find and eliminate the cause. Watch out for drugs. Now, I'm not going to go over the drug things except to tell you the Stratera is the name of the drug that they were using for depression, and they found that the children are developing and adults getting suicide, but it causes hypertension, strokes, and heart attacks in 3- and 5-year-olds. This videotape shows how dust, mold, pollen, foods, and chemicals can adversely affect adults and children. You put 1 drop of those substances in, you reproduce the illness, and then you give them a weaker dilution and they get better, and you can treat them with the weak dilution. What's the problem with all of that? It's too expensive, it's too time consuming. That's what I did for years. I think there are faster, easier, more inexpensive ways. And the last thing, I'm not going to tell you, this slide is important, but I'm not going to go over it. It's the things I want to do research in that I think will help autistic children, but you'll get it when you buy things. What more can I do? Well, no, not buy things. If you order I'm giving you permission to go to my website or call 1-800-78-78-780. They will give you this lecture, and they will give you my lecture, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And all we want is your email address so we can email you. I'm trying to get a database of people that are concerned. So when a politician is going to vote for something that can hurt every single person in this room, they're going to get 10,000 emails overnight. Why do we have to get organized? We have to get organized because the chemical industry and the drug industry is already organized. They have lots of employees. They get a letter saying, tomorrow morning, we want every single one of you to send us a carbon copy of the letter that you're sending to this politician, and here's what you've got to say as to why they need to pass this particular rule. If they get 10,000 letters saying to pass it, unless we send 100,000 letters, they're not going to stop. So I'm trying to get people all over the world organized. When I spoke in Spain and Poland 2 weeks ago, we're all trying to get databases so we can get organized and at least let you know what's going on and what needs to be done. Now, and that's it. Thank you very much.